Hello, hello. Welcome to Grassroots Voices with Robin and Friends, where community and politics meet. I'm Robin. We're going to get this show started in a few minutes. I have to share this episode to the Facebook Live group, and then I have to share the episode around about 50 or so Facebook groups. So it takes me a few minutes. If you're watching on YouTube or watching a replay, just go ahead and forward about 3 to 5 minutes in. It's really closer to 5 minutes in. And then that's when the actual show will begin. I also need to prop up this camera a little bit. Okay. So you can see my Stacey Abrams for president. Okay, it's just a fun shirt. No one's trying to do anything with Joe Biden. So, all right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and start to share this episode across all of the Facebook groups. And then again, we'll get started at the 5-minute mark. So again, thank you for coming. I'm so glad you are here. And let's start the show. I don't know if this is going to work. Okay. Whew, trying to get my little team Stacey. Okay, there we go. So give me one moment. This is a labor of love. I don't have a full production team. It's just me and my best friend who is willing to help with the production. So shout out to Kimi. Thank you for your service. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share this episode to the Facebook groups, and then we will get started from there. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share this into the groups. So again, that will take maybe a minute or two, and then we will get started with the live. So again, thank you for your patience. All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. We are going to get started with Grassroots Voices with Robin and Friends, where community and politics meet. I'm Robin. This is episode 21, our final episode of season 1. I can't believe we've had 21 shows just in this last several months. So what I do, I go ahead and I share this Facebook Live across the various Georgia-based political groups and political groups across the country. So it takes a few minutes. I do this on my phone. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. So if you're watching the replay, you can fast forward to about the 5 or 10 minute mark, because I'm running a little bit late, but just a few minutes forward, and that's when the actual episode will begin. So just give me one moment here to go ahead and share this episode across the groups, and then we will get started. Thanks again for your patience. And okay, here we go. Facebook has been kind of wonky these past few weeks. So if there's any technical issue, what I usually will do is I will come back after the show is over, and I'll post in the comments section the YouTube link, so you can watch on YouTube if for like I said, for any reason there's technical issues. Facebook is starting to make me wonder, what's up with all this? This has just started happening. All right, so almost finished. Just give me about one more minute. Feel free to check the comments section. Kimi, if you can drop StaceyAbrams.com in the comment section. If you have not already, please go and sign up to receive updates and emails from AFG, Abrams for Governor, or you can donate a grassroots donation. especially getting on their monthly automatic monthly with contribution. That's really good because that allows campaigns to know their budget ahead of time and start to build a plan out, resources and hiring and things like that. So the sooner that you donate, that's great. And again, if you can do a monthly donation, they have more time to strategize and plan how to use that money and funds. So if you're just joining me, this is Grassroots Voices Facebook Live. I am just sharing this episode across the Facebook groups, via my phone, and just giving people a chance to hop on, and then we'll get started with the show. So thanks for your patience, and let us know where you're from in the comments. Drop a line and let us know if you're in Georgia or another part of the country. We love to know that. Okay, you're going to give me about 30 more seconds. If you're joining us just now, thank you for joining us. We're going to get the show started in just a few minutes. So I'm just sharing this Facebook Live episode across the various groups and just giving people a chance to hop on live. And okay, almost there, almost there. So again, if you're just joining, I'm just sharing this Facebook Live across the various groups and giving people a chance to hop on, and then we'll get started. It just seems like just yesterday was the Georgia runoffs. Can't believe this year's over. All right. So again, if you're just joining, this is Grassroots Voices Facebook Live show. We'll be getting it started in about 1 minute, I promise. I am just sharing this Facebook Live episode across the various Facebook groups. It's easiest to do it via phone, and it just takes a little bit of time. And I'm giving people a chance to hop on and watch live if they'd like. Okay, I think we're going to get started. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start the show, officially start the show. All right, so welcome to Grassroots Voices with Robin and friends, where community and politics meet. I'm Robin Donaldson, the host of Grassroots Voices. We have a really exciting episode today. I think it's exciting because I like to talk anything about Stacey Abrams in Georgia and the grassroots and what's going on here. So this is episode 21. We've had 21 episodes since August 13th. We've had weekly episodes, I think, minus Thanksgiving week. So I'm just really so happy and proud of everyone who's been a part of this show. Thank you so much for joining and for participating. Thank you to all my guests and everyone that has supported the show. So episode 21 is called All Things Stacey Abrams with Reid Jones and Robin Donaldson. We're going to be speaking with Reid. Reid is the founder of Stacey Abrams for President. Here's my t-shirt. That this was started before Joe Biden even announced for president, but he started Stacey Abrams for President, which is now the People for Stacey Abrams. And he also is the founder of Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club Facebook group, as well as the Statehood Movement Facebook group for Statehood Movement for DC and Puerto Rico. So we'll be speaking with Reid. Reid had reached out to me and we joined forces over a year ago. And so I thought it would be wonderful to end this season 1 with Reid, and as a way to also start planning for 2022, now that Stacey Abrams has announced that she's running for governor. What a cute photo. Thank you for putting this together, Reid. So anyway, for those of you who are just joining, this is Grassroots Voices with Robin and friends, where community and politics meet. I'm Robin. I started this show on August 13th of 2021 as a way to elevate and uplift the voices of social change agents, people who are out there doing the hard work every day around the issues that we care about, because a lot of times people can feel very hopeless. And, you know, and then sometimes people, usually people who aren't doing something, are out there saying that like no one's doing XYZ, which is so far from the truth. There are people out there every day working on these hardcore issues that we all care about. And so I wanted to uplift their voices and let them come on and share calls to action. So those of you who are in these Facebook groups who like to support, you know, various causes, you'll know who are the change agents, and you'll know about the calls to action. So then you can, you know, put your time and energy or money into worthy causes. So that was pretty much the intention for starting Grassroots Voices. So I'm the founder of Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots. It has been a lot of different names. We started off, I think it started off as Biden Abrams, when we wanted Stacey to be the vice president. You know, the president's choice for vice president. So it's had a lot of different names, but right now it's Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots, and it will probably change again in 2022. But this is where we stream the show live from. So please join our group. I have to update this photo because now we're approaching 24,000 people. Just in the last, since the announcement, we've maybe brought in almost 1,000 people. So we're continuing to grow. And so please join the group, check the comment section. And then in this episode, we're going to meet Reid Jones, who, again, like I said, he's the founder of various Stacey groups. And we're gonna just talk and celebrate her announcement that she's running for governor. We're gonna discuss the next chapter of the fight for voting rights and start preparing for 2022. So before we hop on and speak with Reid, I would like to just go ahead and play a video or two to highlight, you know, what has happened this week, especially around voting rights. So we're going to hear from Latasha Brown. She is the founder of Black Voters Matter, and she's going to, you know, just talk a little bit about, you know, what we're seeing on the ground in regards to the vote. So let's go ahead and play this video.
I love that point, because I always feel like when people say the economy is the most important issue, I'm like, no, voting is. Joining me now, Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. So what is your reaction to Senator Warnock's comments there? It feels like carving out an exception for the debt ceiling, but not voting rights, is backwards.
I mean, it's so problematic. Here we are in 2021, and voters that showed up to vote in 2020, you know, are actually being punished because of how they voted and who they voted for. And so here it is, a Senate that's willing to shift the filibuster for the debt ceiling, to raise the debt ceiling, which that is important. But how is that more important than we're talking about the fundamental right of the access to the ballot, to voting? And so, because that determines the economic outcome, that when people are not able to participate in the process to create the policies and impact the policies, then what kind of economic policy will come out there? And so I think that it's really important, you know, just as Senator Warnock talked about, that it is unacceptable for us to really continue to move forward and not fight for voting rights. It's definitely disappointing that I would like to see the Senate and the Democratic senators really speak out more all across the board around this issue in particular. But then secondly, we need the president to speak to this. Here we are at the end of 2021, and I, as a voter in the state of Georgia, I have less protection for my personal right to vote than I did last year. And so essentially, I'm being punished for participating in the election.
When you put it that way, you know, the stakes could not be more clear. And, you know, you mentioned some of these moderate senators, Senator Manchin and some other moderates met today on the Democratic side about voting rights specifically. Congressman Clyburn says he believes the Senate will be able to agree on a carve-out to pass voting rights. Do you feel optimistic they'll be able to get this done and in enough time that the upcoming elections those rights will be protected in 2022?
You know what I believe.
Sound for, oh, she's back.
Yes,
I lost your sound for a second. So yes, I can hear you now. Continue.
So what I believe is, to move forward, it's going to take us putting a whole lot of political pressure. I don't think we need to take this for chance. We're at the end of 2021, and we're still raising the issue around what I think is essentially political corruption. When people are actually, when there's an attack on people for voting because they voted for a particular candidate or for a particular way, in a particular way, and they are actually punished for that, that's a serious, that has serious implications. And that's a direct attack on democracy. And so I think it's really important in this moment that what we have to do is we have to do several things. One, we're going to have to demand that we have voting rights legislation going forward. We've got to call our senators, our House of Representatives. We've got to put pressure on the Democrats as well as the Republicans. They don't get off the hook, right? Because they have responsibilities around democracy as well. And so what we're seeing is this trifecta effect, where we're seeing where the Republicans have created this process in states like Georgia and Texas, where we're seeing the weaponized administrative process. They're removing people from the election boards as we speak. They're literally put themselves in a position and legislation like the SB 202 that was passed earlier in the year in Georgia that has all kinds of restrictions. It restricts access to the ballot. In many ways, the most egregious part of it is it gives them the authority to even overturn an election result. And so I think we have to really recognize that democracy is under attack, and it's going to be critical that we're fighting on the local, the state, and we hold our elected officials accountable on the national level as well.
I've been thinking a lot about the fight on the local and state level and how the federal voting rights legislation is essential to facilitate that fight. And you mentioned the Republicans in the state of Georgia purging Black Democrats from county election boards. Help the folks at home understand what is happening and how significant that is in terms of the voters in the state of Georgia being able to elect the people that they want.
So I'll give one example. We're seeing this all across the board, but the Senate bill SB 202 that people heard a lot of controversy around, with the governor signed sitting up under a picture of a plantation house in the background, flanked by all white male Republicans. That bill essentially did a number of things. We heard about, restricting organizations from being able to get water and snacks in line. It restricted absentee, it shortened the absentee ballot process and drop box. But the most egregious part is that the governing party, now has the power and authority to even supersede the Secretary of State. They essentially do what Trump asked them to do. If they don't like the results, they can actually overturn the results, right? Also, they put themselves in authority that they can actually indiscriminately remove people from the election board. And so we're experiencing that right now in Fulton County. Fulton County is the most populous county in the state of Georgia, right? It is a very diverse county and is a very strong Democratic stronghold for the state. And so what you're seeing right now, they've already removed election officials who have worked on this board for a number of years, right? Who have integrity, who know the process. They've already removed them from the board. And we're seeing this happen all across the state.
Do you get the sense that the Democrats in the Senate understand what's happening on the state level? Because if they don't, they may not have the same sense of urgency, because what you just described is essentially subverting the will of the voters. Installing your own person, a corrupt person, to say the election is won by whoever you want, not the will of the voters. That's not democracy. And Senator Warnock said the democracy is crashing all around us. I mean, do you think the Democrats understand that that's what's happening? Do you think President Biden hears you?
I think the Democrats understand what is happening. The question is, do they have the political will and the courage and the commitment to the voters that actually empowered them and gave them an advantage in this election to do what is needed, that's needed to be done? The bottom line is, more than any other piece of policy, the most critical piece of policy that we should be having on the forefront, and that the administration should have on the forefront right now, currently, should be around voting rights. And so, because even this attack, while it's been designed and will disproportionately impact Black voters and voters of color, it fundamentally undermines democracy. We've got to call this what this is. This is political corruption. The president had a summit around democracy, a democracy summit that he hosted with world leaders this week. And right in his backyard, what we're seeing is an all-out attack on voters throughout this nation. The question is he willing to do what is needed to be done to protect democracy?
It is so, it's so important. I can't overstate it. That's the whole thing here. Here we're pro-democracy. That's what I'm for. I'm not pro-democrat, I am pro-democracy, okay? So let's be clear. We need to do something about that. Thank you so much, LaTosha Brown, as always, for being here, and please stay safe.
All right. And let's see. One more video. We're going to hear from Cliff Albright, the other co-founder of Black Voters Matter. He and LaTosha Brown both run Black Voters Matter.
For more perspective on this, we're joined now by Cliff Albright, co-founder and executive director of Black Voters Matter Fund. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you think democracy is struggling so much in the U.S.?
Yeah, well, we know, thanks for having me, Bianca. We know that there have been a wave of voter suppression bills that were introduced last year or earlier this year, over 400 in just about every state in the country. We know that in 19 states that they've actually passed those bills. We know that there's 33 bills that they've passed that restrict the right to vote. We know that right now gerrymandering is taking place in states all across the country, where even though most of the growth in some of these states has happened in Black and brown communities, that they're actually taking away Black and brown representation, right? We're losing election representation. We're losing some of our congressional people and state officials are being targeted. So all that is going on. And oh, by the way, there's been a slow coup taking place since last year, since earlier this year, January 6th, where we've seen just this wave of trying to overturn elections. We see people that are running for offices right now that are saying that they would not have certified last year's election. So all of these are reasons, and we know that we've got solutions in the form of two bills, the Voting Rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, as well as the Freedom to Vote Act, but we can't get them passed because of a undemocratic Senate procedure called the filibuster. We need the president to speak out more about getting this legislation passed.
Well, considering all of these factors, what do you think can be done to reinstall that trust?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of very simple things, right? One, pass these bills, right? Pass this legislation that's out there, some of which is designed to just restore the 1965 Voting Rights Act. As I'm talking to you right now, we actually have less voter protections than we had in 1965 when that act was first passed, because it's been gutted by the Supreme Court, because it's been under attack by states. So a very simple solution is to pass that legislation. It's passed the House. It needs to get past the Senate. It has 50 votes, but it does not have 60 votes to get past this Jim Crow relic called the filibuster, which Joe Biden, who's leading a democracy summit, but he hasn't spoken out about protecting our democracy right here enough. He hasn't fully leaned in to ending or modifying the filibuster right here in our country. And as I've said elsewhere, you can't be the torchbearer for democracy across the globe if your house is on fire right here at home. We need the president to do more to get this legislation passed. We know he's not in the Senate and the president doesn't vote, but the presidency serves as a bully pulpit. The same way he's leaned into infrastructure and Build Back Better, we need him to lean into voting rights, and he's yet to do that. But those are a couple of very basic solutions that we have. And then there's also the solution of people running for offices locally, because at the end of the day, we need people to be in positions in these election commissions and secretaries of state that overrun, that supervise these elections. So that's another solution that we have. But the most important solution is we need this federal legislation, and we need people to reach out to their senators and to the White House to insist that it gets passed.
Right. And clearly the numbers show that a lot of Americans don't exactly have lots of faith in democracy, but people don't always turn out to the polls. So how do we get more people involved in this?
I'm glad you asked that question. That's really a big part of what my organization, Black Voters Matter, really focuses on, right? We mobilize folks, and the way that we do that is by one, having conversations with folks that have never had that conversation. They've never gotten a phone call. They've never gotten a knock at the door. They may not have even gotten something in the mail, but just reaching out and talking to folks that oftentimes get overlooked because they're in marginalized communities, because people take them for granted, because people don't think that they're going to vote. That includes younger voters. Well, a lot of times older folks look at it and say, oh, well, we can't rely on them to turn out. But in this past election cycle, we prioritized talking to younger voters, and they came out. And so a big part of it is just by having those conversations. In order to make that happen, we've got to support the local organizations that are on the ground and does this work every day, right? Not just one election day, not just 2 weeks before the election, but all throughout the year. That's why my organization links up with organizations, community-based groups, and provides them resources so that they can better mobilize, they can do more door-to-door work, so that they can print out flyers and things of that nature to reach out to folks. We've got to support the folks that are on the ground that do this work. And then we've got to have authentic conversations with them where we don't just center, are you registered? Or we don't just center a candidate, but we center the issues that people are deeply concerned about, which in our community includes a lot of racial justice issues. It includes voting rights. It includes gun violence, right? So we got to talk to people about the issues and center them and not just the voting process. And we found that when we do that, that we're able to get folks engaged who previously haven't been engaged because they just haven't had the right conversation and been prioritized.
Cliff Albright of the Black Voters Matter Fund, thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Okay. So thank you to Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright with Black Voters Matter. And full disclosure, they are one of my clients. However, I've been playing their, playing their footage and videos for even before that, because I think they're just two strong voices and strong leaders that are out there who are holding the Democrats accountable, and really they're in the communities doing the hard work that it takes to make sure that they can mobilize the vote. So please continue to support them. Okay, so next I'm getting ready to bring in Reid Jones. Let me go back to my screen over here. Okay, perfect. So Reid Jones, my dear friend, Reid is the founder of Stacey Abrams for President Facebook group, or Facebook page, which is now the new name is the People for Stacey Abrams. He's also the founder of Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club, which is a Facebook group here in Georgia. Reid is a 23-year-old Georgia-grown activist who is the founder of Stacey Abrams for President, Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club. He was one of the lead organizers for the 2021 Atlanta Reproductive Justice March and Rally. In 2017, Reid organized a petition drive and a rally against the flying of the Confederate flag in his hometown of Kennesaw, Georgia. In 2013, when Reid was just 15 years old, he was hired by Movie Pilot, the largest social media conglomerate in the world at the time, as a freelance journalist. He helped them become a top 200 website in the world, bringing more than 11 million views to the site. As Hollywood began to roll out the red carpet to influencer fans, Reid's team was very successful in centering race, gender, and the endless possibilities of Marvel's expanded universe through journalism and digital promotions. Reid was part of the early promotional work for Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers Age of Ultron. So I'm going to bring Reid in. Thank you so much, Reid, for your patience. I'm going to bring you in now. Here we go. And I guess it's connecting to his audio. So thanks for your patience. Okay. All right, so we're going to give Reid a chance to hop on. No, are you there, Reid? Okay, so while Reid is hopping on, I'm gonna just go ahead and play one more video. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead as Reid hops on. Gonna play one more video and then we'll go from there. Oh wait, are you there, Reid?
Hi,
Oh, that's okay. Hi, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for your patience. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What?
Hey, you got your shirt. I have mine over there in the laundry.
Yes, we put this shirt last year, and so we just
Yes.
here, until Stacey announced for governor, and then we're gonna keep this around for that one day where she hopefully runs for president. So
Yes.
somewhere. How have you been?
I've been good. Just got back from San Diego earlier this week.
Yeah, you little tan, I can see it. Yeah, cool. I'm glad you took some downtime. I need to do the same.
Yep. Feels like I've been just run, especially since the announcement, December 1st.
Yes. It was December 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It was first day of Christmas.
exactly.
But it was Janelle Monáe's birthday.
Okay.
And it was also the anniversary of Rosa Parks getting arrested.
Oh, wow.
So very historic, actually very special day. Also, Merry Christmas. But
very cool. Well, I'm so glad that you could join. So let's maybe start from, we'll go backwards. So Reid and I, we had the chance to go to Jacksonville, Florida, and see Stacey Abrams speak as part of her Stacey Abrams tour. And we had put together this 45-page presentation about all the work that our various Facebook groups and Facebook pages have been doing to support Stacey Abrams and to support voting rights, to support various candidates here in Georgia, like Senator Warnock, Senator Ossoff, Representative McBath, et cetera, et cetera. And then we were able to get this information to Stacey and her team, as well as other organizations. And it was just a really cool experience to be able to see Stacey and meet her again, especially, since the pandemic. I think it was like one of the first events where, you could be around her without your mask. Of course, it was social distancing and a lot of people were vaccinated, but it was a really cool event. It was really fun and very inspiring to get us ready for 2022. Oh, wait, did I lose you? Okay.
no, I'm still here. Sorry, I was.
Okay, you went outside. Okay. Yes. So let's maybe just even talk about, what made you start your group and your page?
Yeah. So I started the page originally because well,
The Stacey Abrams for President page.
Yeah, it was about, I want to say 5 or 6 months before I made the page was when I started organizing for Confederate monument removal in downtown Kennesaw, which is where I was from. Confederate monument removal meant a lot to me just because I knew my own family's lineage and I knew the local history, but I also knew that everything that I saw locally sort of glorified the Confederacy, even though our town was even the home to the very first people who got the, I think it was Medal of Honor, Medal of Freedom, one of them. All of the first people to be honored with the award were from Kennesaw, but that's not a very well-known fact for people here in Kennesaw. We mainly just know the name of the guy who went and got the train back to the Confederacy. So for our local history, it didn't match up with what we had been told our whole lives of the North, the Union, about Civil War history. And so I had organized around that before I had noticed it, but it wasn't that big of a deal until Charlottesville. So after that, Stacey was one of the few people who actually made a very solid statement on it. Started talking about Stone Mountain, which was, of course, another sort of local dissonance with the national story on what the Civil War was even about. And so talking about that really had my support. So I made the page and it's just sort of grown ever since then. I met you with the VP candidate race, I think, right? Or at least started organizing more closely with you during that time frame.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Have you talked about that already?
Not yet. Yeah, but Phil, yeah, go ahead.
Wait, you go to it because it's about your group.
Well, but then did you start Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club after?
I think it was probably around the same time.
Okay, no,
But
I didn't know it had been around. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I think that it might have been a little bit before, because I know that that's when I started connecting with you. So yeah, I made the page, or I made the group essentially because I got so many comments on the page of people sharing photos and trying to share links and saying like, make sure to share this. And a lot of times it was like, well, I don't really agree with the language of that article, but you guys can share it. And I want to give you guys a space that you can. So I made the group, but realized pretty quickly that having a group along with the page infinitely boosted the power that a Facebook page has, because you're posting in there as the page is getting shared, but you also have all the other people contributing. And then it just compounds. You have tons and tons of people. You're getting all of these different perspectives rather than a page where it's just one perspective and that's all you can really work with.
Right.
So that was really fun. And then it was really cool to start seeing new groups pop up after that, because it really had just been like some Georgia Democrat groups and then us with the page.
Mhm.
And then the group started picking up with Fair Fight Club after that. And I thought that was fun because I based the group name Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club off of two things. There was some Bernie and Warren groups that I really liked the names that they had done. There was Elizabeth Warren's comprehensive meme plan, which went along with her entire theme of like always having a plan, like literally laying out exactly how you're going to pay for everything. I really like that. And then you had Bernie Sanders' Dank Meme Stash, which was sort of in reference to him being the first one to, yeah, he was the first one to come out for legalization of cannabis. So that fit perfectly with his whole campaign as well. So I wanted something that fit with all of her campaign like wording, but also fit with some sort of tie that went with me. And I love that Stacey was always a nerd. Like she talks about Star Trek. She'll talk about the fact that she was watching the Game of Thrones final season when it aired. So I named it Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club because, of course, Fight Club. The first rule about Fight Club in the movie is that you don't talk about Fight Club, but our rule is that the first rule about Fair Fight Club is that you talk about it.
Cute.
And so, and then of course we based the name off of like how the Bernie and the Warren groups have been set up too. So it was kind of fun to like tie that all in.
That is so smart. That is so smart. That's so cool. Yeah, so the way Reid and I connected, originally, I think I had Team Georgia Blue. Well, sorry, I had Joe Biden for Georgia, and then that became Team Georgia Blue. But it was March of 2020. And, I really believed that Georgia, could be flipped. And, I was doing some just grassroots, work for the Biden campaign. And part of the reason I just got involved early with the Biden campaign is because I wanted to really impress upon them that Georgia was in fact, a state that could be flipped. And the idea of, it was a small group of us, at the grassroots level, who was doing a lot of work with the Biden campaign during the primaries in 2019, before the primaries in 2019. And then we were preparing for South Carolina. And, we wanted to show that the Biden campaign, like, look how excited Georgia is, you have these grassroots people and, just to kind of further that narrative that Georgia was in play. I mean, obviously we weren't the only ones, impressing that upon them and the DNC, but, we wanted to just be that extra push for the Biden campaign to take Georgia seriously, because there was, as far as like, some of that inner circle early on, it was like half the people believed Georgia could be flipped. And then it was like half the people doubted, and they were actually, trying to look towards Florida and Iowa and some of these other places.
And that really is the first battle too.
Yeah.
It's like you have to convince them that it is flippable first. And you have to be able to convince everyone else in the state that it's flippable. Because once you get everyone saying that it's that like that what do you call it? Self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will.
Absolutely. And exactly. And they have to know, where to put their resources and, things, I started Biden Abrams. That was the name of the original, Facebook group that's now Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots. And so we really focused on writing letters to the vetting team of Joe Biden, and we were really talking up Stacey and her work, and it was in a lot of really moving letters that people wrote, especially people who were from Georgia. And then there was also the Abrams Playbook. This was a document, you can Google it and pull it up. It's a free document that's online that Stacey and Lauren Grow-Wargo, the CEO of Fair Fight, they wrote this document talking about how Georgia was a premier battleground state for 2020, as well as talking about Florida, North Carolina, and Texas, and all these other places. And they really broke down the data and the numbers. So anytime I saw anyone from the Biden campaign, I would always tell them, like, please read the Abrams Playbook. Like, this is how you guys can win Georgia and these other places. And people would sometimes kind of, laugh or not take it seriously. And, but I think eventually, obviously they took us seriously, took Georgia and Stacey seriously. So that's when Reid reached out to me, and I'm so happy you did, and said, we should join forces and, start, being more intentional and working together. But yeah, what made you reach out and build that coalition?
You'd been active in the group, I know that. And so that was fun, because I think I had added you to, or talked to you at least through chat about helping administrate the page some, just because like we were posting a lot of the same content, so it seemed like it would make sense for us to like team up and like cover through the page. But it ended up being so much better for us to just like build almost in coalition with, and just sort of like anytime something good would be shared in one of our groups, make sure that it was spread in all of them, and having that intersection between the sections.
No, that's so good, because sometimes, people don't want to reach out, or maybe they reach out and you try to, do something together, but maybe it just doesn't work, for whatever reason. But I just think, the thing about the Facebook groups, and really just social media in general, I look at them as, tools to, like, as a means to an end, of sorts. And these Facebook groups are, you can get so much done and accomplished, and you can really build a strong community, but you really need to have strong moderators and admins, and just even have a real vision for the group. Because the reason I started the Joe Biden for Georgia group at that time was because there were other Biden groups, and all people would do they would just talk about Trump. All the posts would be about Trump or just about the Republicans, and they weren't talking about Joe Biden or anything else. But, that's why I think these groups are so important, because, a lot of times people will start a group and they don't really know what they're doing, and that's okay. I mean, but you have to, it helps to, research and kind of understand, because you really can use these groups as a very strong tool. And that's what we did, especially for 2020, and then definitely going into the runoffs.
Yeah, talking about Trump is only helpful as much as it is to spread the information. Just being angry about it, or getting people like mad, or just commenting how angry you are, does nothing unless you're actually putting it into action. So one of the things we did, or like specifically made it very intentional, was making sure that anything that we shared was a way to make it better, or a way to improve upon it, or a way to take action, so that you could defend against whatever the attack of the day was back when Trump was president. So and luckily Stacey has been the perfect counter narrative, because she's always given us something to be hopeful for every time that there's something to be upset about. And having that there, and being able to focus on something positive and put our energy somewhere into something that's going to do the most good, has given us that hope. And you have to be intentional with your messaging about it being positive and uplifting and not just about the negative. And that's why I'm like, as much as we hate Marjorie Taylor Greene, you have to get a good candidate in there or you're not going to win against her, period. You know, it doesn't matter how much money or how much funding or how horrible the opposition is, because they tend to go red in that district by astronomical numbers. You have to have a great candidate in there, you know, no matter what. And you have to look at it that way.
That is so true. And I always used to think too that, you know, because I did have like, not a lot, but it was like, I remember it was like one or two people who, you know, didn't like that I wouldn't allow like a lot of Trump posts, especially if it wasn't like something specific, you know, and they were like, oh, you're just trying to create like this false reality and, you know, this and that. But the thing about it, I just always thought, you know, if I don't need to post that information in this group because there's so many other groups that are posting that information anyway, or it's being covered, you know, on the news. But you're right. I mean, it's much more sustainable when you can kind of, you know, keep a positive and uplifting message and vibe and energy in the groups. So
yes, and getting Warnock and Ossoff like elected too has given us like 2 extra mouthpieces on a national level where everyone's talking about them and everyone's publishing what they say to help us get our message across about what Georgia needs the most. And having that this past year has been insane. It's been incredible. It's been great for our organizing. Now we just have to hope that it's not been overkill and that it's still the positive message and that we're still getting out there and knocking doors and telling people what the good is that we're doing and what we're achieving. With what the seats that we've won and also focusing on the seats that we still need to win so that we can get the rest of it done. Because we're doing it, we just need a few more seats, and that's always the excuse, but it is.
No, and I mean,
it takes
even
that momentous energy every election. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and even you know, for those people who don't know, in this last local and municipal election, Georgia, the Democrats, you know, flipped so many seats. I mean, I think it was like 40 some seats, you know, at all, you know, different levels and, you know, different offices and everything. So Georgia is definitely, you know, just inching its way more and more into the blue area, which is why we're seeing, you know, all these voter suppression laws and tactics that they're using. But I really feel like next year is going to be the year. And it's going to be so exciting for Stacey Abrams to be governor of Georgia and possibly the first Black woman governor in the history of the United States. And let's
make history.
And then, you know what I was thinking too, just recently, you know, it just kind of all clicked where, you know, as gut wrenching as 2018 was with the governor's race, I really just feel like, you know, because I'm very spiritual and I believe in divine time and divine order. And I just really feel that, you know, it wasn't meant for her to win then, because literally she had to then stop a coup, you know, happening, you know, just 2 years later. Because if it was not for, number one, Stacey, as you know, as well as, of course, all the Georgians and all the organizers who've been doing in the party, who've been doing all of this work over the last 10 years to get Georgia to this point. If it was not for, you know, Stacey kind of being that figure, you know, of voting rights and a voting, you know, champion, and telling people that it was safe to vote by mail. Because I don't know if people remember, but I mean, we had the pandemic, and then there was all these issues with, I think, DeJoy or whoever the postmaster. Decided that
in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of the election season, was going to just change up all the systems for mailing. Because Trump ordered him to, because he wanted to spread disinformation and distrust in our mailing system because they're trying to privatize it and trying to get it out of our public tax dollars, even though it's a public resource that we all need. And it's something that we need for voting, but I digress.
Yeah, and no, you're right. And then it almost, you know, it almost worked because, and then there was all this confusion, you know, of course, because the pandemic is happening. And then that was requiring more, you know, precautions that would need to be taken by the poll workers and election workers, and then people going to vote. And it was a lot of confusion. And like you were saying, the misinformation and disinformation that some people did not feel comfortable voting by mail, you know, or by absentee ballot. And then it seemed like Stacey, her voice started getting louder and louder, in the late summer, fall, saying that it's safe to vote by mail and
You
do it
can
right
check it
away.
online.
Yeah. And that really helped, set, especially during the pandemic, it really gave people confidence that they could vote by mail. And then that was, and traditionally with Democrats will tend to early vote more so than Republicans. Republicans a lot of times will show up on election day more so than Democrats for a variety of reasons. Even in Florida, for instance, in 2016, Hillary was winning in Florida by large numbers. I don't have the exact numbers, but it was like by a large amount, maybe almost like 100,000 or something during early voting. And then when it came to election day, the Republicans in Florida, and I used to organize down there in Florida for Obama, but the Republicans in Florida showed up on election day, huge numbers, and then changed that race. And, there were people who thought she was going to win Florida, and then, Trump ended up winning.
Yeah, and they attack those people that are going to be the showing up on election day with the misinformation attacks the most, because they know they're not excited about the policies yet. We can hit them and we can get them with the misinformation because they're not hooked in by the system that's wanting the change right now. They're not hooked in and connected and informed, and they're not voting as soon as they can because that campaign isn't getting there. And we have to make sure that we're doing that. And that's why Democrats have to be, because we're the party of hope, of real change, of real progress, of something for tomorrow. And Republicans they run on the same old systems of holding up what it's always been, how it's always been, the way it's always been, who it's always been. Mm-hmm. And so we can shake it up.
And that's what's so great. And I love that you brought that up because, a lot of times it's like, what's the word? It's like a dichotomy where, things are going in a very negative direction in some regards, with the attack on voting rights and women's, or just reproductive justice, and then climate change, all of these things that are happening. But then on the flip side of it is there's so much progress that's happening, and the demographics are changing, and like younger people like you and people younger than both of us, their views are changing. And so, it's like this tug of war that's happening, but really it's like the progress, we have the momentum. That's why we're seeing this blowback, happening, from the other side and everything. So that people have to keep that in mind. And Stacey, and President Obama used to talk about that, but Stacey definitely talks a lot about that. And that's why we have to keep going, because we are making progress. It may not seem like it, but we really are.
Yeah. And she kind of talks about that recently when she was talking about the Buckhead trying to break off, of like with us being just like one state, one. It's all about division with the GOP of, we need to separate from Atlanta because it's crime infested. And the truth is that Atlanta has, lower crime rates than just about any other city of its size in the United States. But because of COVID and because everyone was at home for a time period, crime went up for that period while everyone was at home more. But now it's leveled off. It's gone back to normal rates, and Atlanta once again has lower crime rates than most other cities of its size. Mm-hmm. So it's like all of it is that pandering to make you divide, make you fearful, and so that's why early voting, why mail-in voting is so important, is because if you're hooked, if you're engaged, we need to try to get your vote out then, while you're thinking about it, while you can, because who knows what's going to happen on election day with your boss, with your family, or whatever. Who knows what's going to happen that last week of early voting, and we talk about that all the time, but that is, it's not accessible like everything else in your life where you can pull it up on your phone and click it and be done. Right. You have to go through the process, and the education on that in Georgia has not been here until Stacey Abrams came along and did it. And she knew that she couldn't win statewide by running for Secretary of State, but she knew that she could get enough people talking about it by running for governor. And so that's what she did by running against what she hoped wouldn't be the Secretary of State, but ended up being. And I always thought it was interesting that not one, but two former presidents said that Brian Kemp being Secretary of State during that election was immoral. Jimmy Carter came out and completely called for Brian Kemp to resign, and then Obama said that it was wrong in his speech the week before.
Yeah.
So that always blew my mind that even got allowed. So
I know, and that should have been like a very clear signal, of what was to come, as far as, the abuses of power, that we're seeing now. One thing I did want to just back up to, I just know, like for me, I'm from, Illinois, and it's, a safely blue state for the most part. Maybe it's changing. And well, let me back it up. We've had Republican, governors, too. But I will say what was interesting coming to Georgia, if you're in a state where maybe it's been red for a long time, or, the Democratic Party is not, the party in power, you don't have as much data and information. And what was cool about Stacey when she ran, because so many people came out to vote, and because so many people were so engaged and registering, et cetera, it helped to update the data for the party, so that I just thought that was like a very cool, interesting thing, especially because she, I believe, launched her campaign in a rural area, because a lot of times, I guess, people in rural areas in Georgia felt neglected by the Democrats, and I'm sure, in some places they still feel that way. But it was cool to see her, put a lens on rural communities, and then especially talking about the lack of Medicaid expansion and the lack of hospitals, because a lot of hospitals, I think they said it was like 10 hospitals in Georgia had been closed over the last 10 years, and 6 of them were in rural areas. So yeah, people who have an emergency might have to drive like 90 miles to get to an emergency room. And that is just, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's cruel, and it's against anything, I feel like, as far as, human rights and caring about humans, so anyway, what are your thoughts as far as rural organized?
One thing I can talk about with rural development is we can actually say that we delivered for rural people when it comes to hospitals this year, because we had Ossoff and Warnock get the Medicaid funding under the new bill, as well as Kamala Harris. She just announced funding and also a designation program for which hospital facilities are approved or government recommended, or at least federally recommended, for pregnant women when giving birth, and which ones actually are considered suitable for going to if you are in labor, because certain ones where it was very confusing about what type of training those types of facilities had when it came to women in labor. And that was probably, as we look at statistics, what was leading to a lot of problems here in Georgia. So that in and of itself, and making sure that people know which hospitals and which health facilities can take care of them, is a big part of making sure that they get the care that they need, that they survive. And having that designation, as well as getting the funding for it this year, is so vital, so important. And we can say that we're delivering on that when we just got the funding, and they're going to start marking it, and we're going to be able to hopefully be able to have the federal funding to say, this is where you go and you're pregnant, and this is where you can go, and this is where it's safe to, where you know that you're going to have a better chance of living through you giving birth.
Yes. Well, I didn't know that all of that. That's that's outstanding. Yeah, we'll have to do a future show. I have another idea. You just kind of reminded me, I wrote it down. Okay. So let's see. As far as the Facebook groups, I guess, what did you find to be like, because I know, we had the 2020 election, and then that was its own thing. And then it was the runoff. And it's funny because, me, and I'm sure you and others, people here in Georgia knew that there was always this possibility that we could have 2 Senate runoffs, just because, we know that Georgia has this runoff rule and everything. And these elections were so close. But as far as the runoff is concerned, how do you think the groups, what role do you think they played in, helping Warnock and Ossoff become senators?
I know that we got to share at least and help build on the Ossoff Warnock, which is now the Blue Georgia 2021-2022 group, which now has like 158,000 people. And getting to contribute to that, I know, was a big part of us, as well as just sharing it throughout our networks and through the people that we already knew. Plus the national attention on the fact that it was going to control the Senate during like what could have been, you know, what was going to be an insurrection, what a lot of people knew was going to be an insurrection, what we were not prepared for at the Capitol, unfortunately, which was very strange because being here in Georgia, we saw a lot of the stuff about insurrection, but that was because they're trying to actively attack us with misinformation going up into that. But for other states and other places, it was weird seeing the disconnect and realizing that they hadn't been getting hit with the same ad attacks and same like rallies up in DC, like information that was being distributed just widespread during Georgia. And that's been interesting is because I think without those groups there, we would have been a lot more susceptible to misinformation, and being able to distribute information like that to so many people in Georgia, I felt was such a new thing because that didn't exist, at least politically. Like we didn't have groups that were over like 10,000, 15,000, literally just like 2 years ago in Georgia politics, at least on the Democrats side. They had it in Republicans, at least some, but like to be able to combat misinformation on a widespread basis with our social media like that was new.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. That's really cool. I was going to say too, so there was a Warnock Ossoff, the group that Reid was talking about, and, they had over 100,000 people. I think it's like he said 150,000 right now. Excuse me. But it was started by a few people, and I know a couple of them were based in California. So it was cool because Reid was brought in, and then Reid brought me in, to help admin. And it was cool because we were able to kind of steer it in a way to speak to Georgians and, come from a perspective here in Georgia. But I know for at least, from my point of view, the Facebook groups were extremely helpful in sharing voter education and information about, how to, where to vote. If you're voting by absentee ballot, sharing those voter protection phone numbers, or people needed to cure their ballot after they had voted. We were able to get them that information. Events, we were doing a lot of recruiting for volunteer and different community events and voter registration drives and get out the vote GOTV events and voter contact. And so we did that for the Georgia Democratic Party, Fair Fight, New Georgia Project, Black Voters Matter. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there are some more, obviously the Warnock and Ossoff campaigns, but we would just, go out of our way to share their events and calls to action. And there was also outside groups like Envoys for Humanity. They have, they're one of our, sister groups, but Envoys for Humanity, they had a postcard writing system going, as well as various other Facebook groups. Everybody was doing whatever they could, and it was really nice that we could use those groups as kind of like a container for all of that information, and people knew they could come to the groups and find out, or they could come and post a question, and one of the best things I saw was when people would come and post their I voted peach, I voted stickers, here in Georgia. And that was so encouraging every day to see. So it's such a diverse, and collective and inclusive group of people here in Georgia who were voting in the Senate runoff. So that's why, I just say that, it's a tool that can be used. It's a means to an end if you have a clear vision and you're intentional about it. And if you're able to get admins and moderators who can kind of all work together and be on the same page. And if you already have a group or page, reaching out to other groups that are similar to yours, or even if they're not similar, but reaching out and building those intersectional coalitions, because that's what it really takes to be able to make a difference and to win. Oh, wait, did I lose Reid? Okay.
Reid? No, I'm still here. I just went to audio because I'm pacing back and forth. But yeah, no, I think, and that really was like the theory of intersectionalism and being able to break those barriers and cross the existing communities. I think is really important, especially when it comes to political funding with democratic efforts, because you have like the Asian American Advocacy Fund and the LGBTQ Victory Fund, and having a very diverse state and being able to have people who could advocate on our front about what issues were affecting these specific communities, and having those communities intersect in ways of having B Nguyen, who where her name is very commonly misspelled, so she could advocate for the fact that Asian Americans actually get, because of tildes and accent marks and stuff, get mismarked in voting registries and rolls, and how that affects Asian Americans and Black people and people of color more than it does other communities. But at the same time, you had Sam Park, who is an LGBT American, but also an Asian American, and of course, the first LGBT American to be elected in Georgia. Was a very big deal, and for us to be able to have that representation on a state front was huge. But that also was backed through LGBT Victory Fund. So having those, having a wide breadth of people brought into your coalition to be able to advocate for the communities that exist in your state, but then also being able to use that and have the backing for it behind the scenes and be able to get the funding for those issues specifically. It's so important, and having that network and building those out is what makes a good campaign, is how you win.
Yeah, it's so true. And it takes money, for these campaigns. And I'm glad you mentioned B Nguyen. So she's running for Secretary of State, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar. And B Nguyen, I believe she came after Stacey Abrams, when Stacey went to go run for governor. B Nguyen, ran for the seat that Stacey held, prior. And she's been doing a fantastic job. She's been, all over, some MSNBC and various national media. And she really took on some of Trump's people when he was trying to spread this big lie about, Georgia and about winning the election. And so we really need someone, like B Nguyen to be in that Secretary of State position, not just for Georgia, but also for the 2024 presidential election, because the way the Republicans are moving and the decisions are making, they are just putting people in place. And in these board of elections positions, they're taking away power from certain counties in how they run their elections. And so we absolutely need to have a strong Secretary of State that is going to make sure that that these elections are fair, and that things are run with integrity, or done in integrity, because if not, we're just going to see Trump's big lie, come into fruition, and that is absolutely going to impact, who is president in 2024.
Sweet. Is there anything else we needed to cover?
Before we go, I did want you to just what are you thinking as far as 2022? I know both of us are kind of, trying to take a breather, enjoy the holidays, and then, maybe early next year, figure out like what direction, the groups are going to go. I mean, I have a little bit of idea, but do you have any thoughts, or are you ready to share anything? And it's okay if you're not, and as far as what you're thinking as far as 2022 for the groups.
I would love to work on on a few different campaigns, actually. I'm looking into doing that. So there's a potential that my groups might be geared towards specifically supporting one or two campaigns in particular. But other than that, I'm also considering maybe starting a political PAC if we're not going to be working with any specific campaigns with their coordinated campaign. And then if not, after that, I think that we might just be, I had one other and I lost my train of thought, but back to me. A lot of it is really just up in the air.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out where things are going, who we're going to be working with, because we have so many options, especially after COVID made digital organizing so relevant in ways that people really didn't expect we would be until COVID hit, until it happened, and realized that you can run a good bit of your campaign online and still be effective.
Mhm.
So
Such a good
I don't know.
point about about COVID. Such a good point about that. Yeah.
So
My last question for you. What's your favorite part of just digital grassroots organizing?
accessibility.
Yeah.
I think that too often people find any and every excuse not to do something that they really want to do or something they really want to support. And digital is something that even if you can't, like physically can't, you can still be a part of and still pitch in, and you can from home, even as like without being able to walk, you can still call people, you can still text bank, you can still be on a Facebook group. And so that's what I love, is being able to talk to those people and connect them to resources where they can still be a part of our government and our system, and they can still be heard, and they can still have access to everything. But also for everyone else who's maybe just dealing with anxiety, or maybe they don't have a car, they don't have transportation, or whatever the excuse. We all have our excuses, but that's one thing that I love about digital, is that it takes that excuse out of the way.
Yes. No, I love that too. And I love too how, for me, I love the community building and the community that can be formed in some of these groups. And then I love too that you're able to connect with people who, might live in another, state. Like Reid and I didn't meet in person, I think, until this summer at the rally. I think that was the
yes,
first.
we've known each other for like at least 2 years digitally. Yeah. And then we talked on some like Zoom calls before.
Yeah.
And
then you feel like another person when you see them, because it was like I know it was a voting rights march this like late summer, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna finally meet Reid in person. And then we met, and it just felt like I had known you forever.
Yeah, it was weird because at the time we were like, this is the first time of us actually sitting like physically next to each other, isn't it? And it was like, sorry, it was weird because we were very familiar. Everything felt like we had known each other for forever.
I know. And then it's so cool. I mean, hopefully everything with, the pandemic and, everything else with COVID, I mean, hopefully, next year we can start to be even more in person than, what we are. But there's so many people that we haven't met, in person yet, that we talk to literally every day, all day.
All the time.
Yes, across the country. And I know a lot of them are going to be definitely coming to Georgia to weigh in and help us out. So that's going to be really exciting too.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to start networking. It's weird because I kept getting this feeling recently of like, we need to do like in-person events, but then also the COVID stuff, like maybe we can't do in-person events. That was sort of bumming me out. But honestly, like I have some of the best relationships with people digitally. So I am excited about that, even with the fact that we have to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful, and we can't have those like massive campaign events that we were having before COVID hit, at least.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on here and chit-chatting, with me. And I know we'll be just talking even more and doing more as we, get into 2022. But thanks again for your friendship and your support and your leadership and your ideas. I learned so much from you, and it's just been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on for the finale to recap all of our work. Or looks like it might not be the finale because we might have one more episode or two, but
not this year.
So no? Oh yeah.
No, I'm done.
I might have a little follow-up.
I'm checking out in a few minutes.
For sure. Happy holidays. Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday and New Year, and we will definitely be talking. Wonderful. It's always great to have people like Reid out there doing the good work and, just being creative and building community. I just love that. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to switch into just real quick, talking a little bit about voting rights and what's kind of happening on that front. So first, if you haven't already, just want to remind everybody, please go to StaceyAbrams.com. Sign up for the updates, for the emails, newsletter updates, to find out about her campaign so you can be the first to know about various events that are happening. You can also make a grassroots donation and become a founding donor of the campaign. And when you do that, you will be put on certain email lists. I mean, a lot of times with these campaigns, like when they ask you to sign up for something, it's a specific email list. So when they have future events, they will, have certain, tags, and it'll be like, okay, these are the founding, donors of the campaign. And, you'll be invited to certain special events, or you might find out information before other people. So get in early. That is a thing that that I've seen with campaigns, and I'm committed to. Get in early with a candidate or a campaign, and from the ground up, and you can have a lot of influence over time. You can, support them in the beginning. So make sure to go to StaceyAbrams.com, sign up for the updates via email, and then make a grassroots donation. Also, same thing with Beto O'Rourke. We're going to be supporting Texas. We cannot wait. Well, we are excited for Texas to flip. I want to speak in the affirmative. Texas is going to go blue very soon. We're going to keep the faith and keep working hard. So we want to support Team Texas. We want to support Beto for a governor, and also his organization, Powered by the People, or Powered by the People. It's similar. Well, it's not the same as Fair Fight, but it's pretty much when Beto, after I think he retired the presidential run, he eventually started Powered by the People, and they've been focused on voter registration, as well as other issues since about 2019, 2020. And they have registered hundreds of thousands of voters in Texas. So please continue to support him and his efforts. You can check the comment section, I believe, or just Google, I think it's betterowork.com or Powered by the People, and make a donation to them and sign up for their updates too. But the thing about it is, if we have to get voting rights passed, the Fair Fight, they're still pushing their initiative, the Freedom to Vote Fall. Freedom to Vote Fall is in support of the Freedom to Vote bill, as well as the John Lewis Advancement Voting Rights Bill. There are two different bills. We need both of them passed. What's happening is that, of course, the Democrats have they're tied with the Republicans as far as the amount of senators, and then Vice President Harris would be the tiebreaker for the Democrats. So the Democrats would have the 51 majority. However, because of the filibuster rule, a Senate rule, it's not in the Constitution, it's a Senate rule that requires a 60 majority instead of 50-51 majority, a 60 majority to pass something. So we would need 10 Republicans to come on board, which we know it's not going to happen. I mean, they've voted, I think, like 3 or 4 times against having voting rights even debated. So if they can't even stand the debate, they're definitely not going to vote for this bill. So because of that, we can't get voting rights passed. So first call to action is call your senators at 833-465-7142. Fair Fight will ask you for your zip code, and then they dispatch you right into your senator's office. And you just want to tell your senator to pass the Freedom to Vote bill today, and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We need both bills. It'll stop partisan gerrymandering, as well as a lot of other, it'll make it more uniform across the country for everybody to vote. So please, again, 833-465-7142, call your senators. It takes less than 2 minutes. It really does. And then, remember, they work for you. So you want to let them know that you're one of their constituents. You can mention your zip code or your city or wherever you live, and let them know. I used to work in a Senate office back in the day, and they definitely keep track and tallies every day of who's calling, what they're calling about, and that information is passed up to the senator. So please, please, please call before the holidays are in full swing and let them know that we want voting rights passed. And we need to keep the pressure on President Biden. The White House has a comment line that opens up a couple of hours a day, or a couple of days a week. And you can leave a comment. The number is 888-724-8746, 888-724-8746. We need to get the filibuster either eliminated or at least get them to carve out an exception to the rule, which they did, to raise the debt ceiling. So they were able to carve out an exception, to the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling. Therefore, we know it can be done, and we need to have this happen on voting rights. So again, I know it's not up to President Biden. He's not a senator, but he is the president, and he has the political power and the political will to push the Senate and pressure them to eliminate or carve out exceptions to the filibuster. So please, please, please let your voice be heard on that. Sometimes you're calling these people, because sometimes people in the comments will say, oh, my senator's against it, or I already know my senator, Warnock or Ossoff, they're already for it. It's not really so much about them, like, yes, it is, but that's kind of secondary. We want them to do what we want them to do because they work for us. But really, first and foremost, it's about you empowering your voice and letting your elected official know that you are a strong voice and you're a voter. And so let your voice be heard on that. That's what's the most important part. So they know you're paying attention and you can have your opinion out there. Okay, so before we get to the rest of the show, I did want to highlight something that's happening in Arizona. It's absolutely ridiculous that students in Arizona are on a hunger strike, as well as it's another journalist. I can't think of his name. He's an African-American, Black man, Joe something. Maybe I'll try to find it while I play this video. He's on a hunger strike, as well as these Arizona students. They're on a hunger strike to bring awareness to voting rights, specifically in Arizona, Senator Kristen Sinema, because she is in the way as far as voting rights and a lot of other legislation is concerned. And it's crazy that one or two senators can hold up legislation that we all voted on in the last election. So this, again, is why we need to get rid of the filibuster, because they kind of can lean on that, because that kind of gives them an out in terms of what they do and don't support. So we're going to hear from the Arizona students who are literally putting their lives on the line and their mental health and everything else to draw attention to voting rights.
Last Monday, a group of 20 college students from Arizona started a hunger strike to push for action on federal voting rights legislation. The students are calling on the Biden administration to prioritize voting rights and for Senator Kyrsten Sinema to support changing the rules to the filibuster, which we all know here on this show is the only way voting rights is going to pass. And on Friday, they took their protest from Arizona to outside of the White House. And joining me now are two of the college students on the hunger strike. Brandon Ortega is a junior at Arizona State University, and Georgia Linden is junior at the University of Arizona. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us on and allowing us to, spread the word about this issue.
It's so incredibly important. We talk about voting rights pretty much every day here on this show. Today is day 8 of the hunger strike. Georgia, how difficult has it been so far?
Yeah, I won't mince words. This is an extremely difficult process, more so emotionally. I had no idea the emotional toll not eating for 8 days takes on you, but emotionally and physically, it has been draining, absolutely.
And Brandon, I mean, there is a long history of activists over the course of time doing hunger strikes. How did this start for you guys? I mean, what kind of activism were you doing before this hunger strike? And why did you decide in this moment it was the right moment to do a hunger strike?
Yes, I personally started my mission with Unpack way back in March. And, we spent months of calling, canvassing, emailing, doing whatever we can to, gather support for the Freedom to Vote Act. We also had held events. We had, guest speakers come around, whether they were independents, moderates, conservatives, or liberals. It seemed like everyone in Arizona supported this bill. In fact, 84% of Arizonans support this bill. And we decided to take an escalation in our action in the past few weeks because we want to let our politicians know, our senators know, that we are serious about this. We are committed to this hunger strike until, the Freedom to Vote Act is passed. And ultimately, we'd rather suffer the consequences of being on a hunger strike than suffer the consequences of not passing this bill. That's how serious it is.
Georgia, has Senator Sinema responded or given, signaled any willingness that she is willing to listen and do anything about voting rights legislation? We know that it's Senator Sinema and Joe Manchin that are the ones that don't want to change the filibuster, which is how voting rights will pass.
Last week, we had a meeting with Senator Sinema. She reiterated her support for the Freedom to Vote Act, however, stood strong in saying she is not willing to carve out rules of the filibuster in order to pass this act.
And I would like to add to that eliminating the filibuster was never part of our plan. Again, we want to restore Senate responsibility and the rules to the Senate to get this bill passed in any means. And at the moment, we've had support from Senator Sinema for our action, and we are looking towards the Biden administration for a response. The Biden administration has the power to get this bill passed by the end of the year.
I mean, it's frustrating when you say that she still landed back on the answer and said that, she doesn't want to change the filibuster because, that's almost like, it's almost like gaslighting you guys, right? You guys know, looked it up. You guys know exactly how to get this bill passed. You know that the filibuster is the thing blocking it. And to say that she supports the bill but doesn't support changing the filibuster just means that the bill won't pass and it will be because of her support of the filibuster. What do you want the Biden administration to do? Is it to push her to support a bill that allows for the reforms to the filibuster so that it actually becomes law? I mean, what do you want the Biden administration to do to push these two senators, including your home state senator?
Yes. So again, when we went with Senator Sinema, we had a great meeting. And we hope that she has a better understanding of our commitment to hunger strike until this bill is passed. Again, the Biden administration has the power to restore, Senate rules and whatever that entails for, a single majority on this bill for it to pass.
And Georgia, what do you think, you can be doing in this moment, or others, not even you guys, but what could be done to spread more awareness around voting? I mean, a hunger strike is something that is a drastic step, but this is an emergency given the context of what's happening with the democracy overall. How else are you spreading awareness on voting rights and the importance of getting the Freedom to Vote Act across the finish line?
Absolutely. This was definitely not the initial plan. This was the last ditch effort. As Brendan mentioned, since the beginning of this year, they've been working hard to get this passed, but it just wasn't enough. So we had to pull out all the stops because, as you said, this is an emergency. So we had to pull the e-brake, so to speak, and do everything we could to garner national attention for this issue.
How long can you last, do you think, Brandon? Do you have a number of days in your mind? Are you just hoping that the powers that be, the Biden administration, Senator Sinema, finally listen to you?
Again, yes, I speak for almost all of us here who are hunger striking. We are committed to an indefinite hunger strike and whatever that entails. Some members have already been forced to prematurely end their hunger strike due to medical reasons. We don't want an emergency, but we're holding out as long as we can and as long as we need to.
Wow.
Well, I hope that you both stay safe And again, you're in a long history. There is a very impressive line of history of people who have done hunger strikes for incredibly important causes like this one. Voting rights is maybe the most important. Brandon Ortega and Georgia Linden, thank you so much for being here.
Come on, that is just like beyond ridiculous. I'm gonna hurry up and just play another, let's see if I can refresh. Okay. All right, thanks for your patience. I do want to also acknowledge Joe Madison. He is on day 34 of a hunger strike for voting rights. He started this back in November. Well, was it November? Yeah, November 2021. Yeah. So we're going to hear a little bit about why Joe Madison is taking this route. Again, you know, these are people, everyday people who are putting their lives on the line for our democracy. So again, if you know, no one's asking any of you to do a hunger strike. All we need you to do is call, email, visit your senator, whatever you need to do to express to them that we need voting rights in this country. So let's hear a little bit from Joe Madison.
That I'm going on a hunger strike. I'll just say it. Now, let me read the statement that I released, that's been released this morning. I'll read it. You can go, it's online. You can go online. It's online. I've shared it with a few individuals before this morning. Hunger strikes have been used as a means of political protest as long as there have been politics and resistance. Throughout history, suffragettes in the United Kingdom and the United States have used hunger strikes as a means of protest. So it shouldn't surprise anyone with my background in human and civil rights that I've chosen this form of dissent to what I believe should be a redress to what is just plain politically and morally wrong. So as a political protest, I am beginning a hunger strike today by abstaining from eating any solid food until Congress passes and President Biden signs the Freedom to Vote Act or the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Now, both bills have recently passed by the House of Representatives. Both are stalled in the Senate. Neither bill has garnered the requisite of 60-vote majority and have been unable to circumvent the required majority due to the Senate filibuster rule. Now, as all of you know, my show is action-oriented. It personifies taking action. I always say, what are you going to do about it? And for me, it's not just a slogan. It is what drives me and inspires me. So I have begun this hunger strike, I should say this, in solidarity, let me repeat, in solidarity with all those who are calling on Congress and the President of the United States to protect our voting rights.
Unbelievable. Joe Madison, thank you so much. And the students in Arizona, thank you all for putting, again, your lives and your mental health on the line for our democracy. Honestly, who knows? I'm like, am I going to be in my 60s, 70s, 80s on a hunger strike for voting rights? You know, I mean, it's insane. It's ludicrous. There's just no reason why we should have to be here. So I hope President Biden figures it out. I hope Kristen Sinema and all the other senators and whomever else, whatever needs to happen to pass voting rights, and needs to happen now as soon as possible. Okay, so other than that, if you haven't already, make sure you join our groups, Team Stacey Abrams Grassroots, check the comments section, Team Georgia Blue, Stacey Abrams Fair Fight Club, Stacey Abrams for the People, or People for Stacey Abrams, formerly Stacey Abrams for President, A Blue Georgia for a Stronger and Progressive America, Envoys for Humanity, Disability and Democracy, and the Rural Progressive and Afro-Southeast Georgian. These are all the Facebook groups. We don't all post the same information. Some members overlap, but some of these groups, we have their own specific members. So please join us. We're going to be working together to get it done in 2022. If you have any comments, show ideas, or guest suggestions, please email grassrootsvoices999@gmail.com. I will do my best to answer all of your emails in a timely fashion. But if you have show recommendations or guest recommendations, or you want to connect me with someone for the show, please send your email to grassrootsvoices999@gmail. If you would like to support the show, because this takes a lot of time, a lot of work and energy for me to put these shows together. I do this as a labor of love, because I really believe in just so many of these social change agents that are out there and the work that they're doing. And I want to uplift and, keep people in the loop. And I also want to create a space where those people who want to support with their dollars or support with their time and energy, they know which organizations or which causes or groups that they can confidently put their energy behind. But this does take a lot of work. So if you want, you can support the show through a grassroots donation. You can Venmo me or send a PayPal. Some people like to do this. They're like, that's easier than anything else for them. So, again, if you want, you can support me in that way. I have a whole other life and work life and career that sometimes overlaps, largely overlaps and intersects with politics. Maybe I'll go into that a little bit more next year, but as of right now, this is just volunteer, and I just do this as a labor of love. So if you want to support with a grassroots donation, thank you. I appreciate it, and I will receive that. However, that's not the only way to support. You can support this show by liking and sharing this episode, tagging a friend in the comments, joining our groups, inviting people to our groups, and just keep fighting for voting rights by calling your senators and asking others to call their senators. And you can do that every day. It's fine. Keep the pressure on them. That's what it's going to take to get this done. Other than that, I really appreciate everybody stopping by again. This is the final show of Grassroots Voices with Robin and Friends, where community and politics meet. And again, I'm Robin. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be able to hold this space for all of my guests and all of the organizations and people that we've interviewed. We've had 21 episodes for season 1, 21 for 2021. And we will see what happens in 2022. I'm open to hear suggestions. I'm debating about the direction of the show, or how often, and what we're going to be talking about. So I probably will take a break for maybe a month or two and just sort of regroup and have some downtime, and then come back and see what's the most effective way to use the show with our groups. So again, and then I'm also going to be launching something very special for the groups and for advocates and activists. Something I will talk about maybe at the start of the year, but it'll be in place by the time Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday rolls around towards the end of the month. So we'll see. But again, thank you, everyone. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate all the support and, the just fighting the good fight and getting in that good trouble. We have to do this. I mean, and we're not the first ones. We're part of a long lineage of ancestors and various people in this country and in this world who have, had to put a lot of time and energy and sometimes their lives on the line to make sure that we have a fair and free and just and equitable society. So we just got to keep on keeping on and, take a break, take a rest, but then get back in the fight, the good fight. So again, have a wonderful holiday season, no matter what holiday or which holiday that you're celebrating. Have a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year, and make sure to rest and have fun and play and connect and have these conversations with people, your loved ones, because you are the most influential voice a lot of times in people's lives, and you can encourage them to vote and to get involved and just be the change, be the example that you want to see in the world, like, as Gandhi would say. But really, it's important to be the change and be the example, because then people will be more likely to follow what you say and do what you say when they see that you're actually doing it. So that's the motto I like to live by. I don't ask people, as an organizer, a former organizer, well, still organizer, you don't ask people to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. So that is a great way to just be the change. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I will see everybody next year, or I'll see you in the groups, because I'll still be in the groups. So please join our groups. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or post them in the groups, and somebody will most definitely get back to you. So I'm so relieved that we know our dear Stacey Abrams is running for governor, so we don't have to wonder about this through the rest of the year. We know what's going on, and we know what we need to do going into 2022. So again, call your senators and let them know that we need voting rights passed, and just continue to stay engaged and involved. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you in 22. All right, take care.